What is up, everyone? Today is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, and we are just a mere 2 weeks away from the 2024 United States elections. This includes elections for both the entire House, as well as one-third of the Senate, as well as a plethora of different state and local elections throughout the 50 U.S. states. Most notably, however, we will be having a presidential election. This is between the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris, and the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. It is, at this point, quite close, the elections, although Kamala Harris has a slight edge over Trump in the national polls, although Trump is closing that gap in the last few polls that we have seen over the last week. Currently on Real RCP, the average is Harris plus 0.9, as well as Harris above in the national polls by 1.7 points. Although the 538 simulations have shown that Trump will win 52 times out of 100, with Harris winning 48 times out of 100. The Silver Bulletin shows the national polls with the Democrats ahead 1.7 points. That means the Democrats polling between 1 to 2 points ahead. This shows that there's a slight Trump advantage. Although the polls overall have shown Trump doing better, I will say there is a slight Republican bias in the polls given in the recent numbers because of Donald Trump, because many of the polls that have been released recently are Republican leaning. And the ones, if you take out the Republican leanings, it will show between 2 to 3 points. I think it's like, if you take out the Republican leaning polls, I think Kamala is heading just over 2 points, which does put Harris at around 62.1% probability of winning the Electoral College. With that being said, this video today, I wish to be predicting the next president of the United States. So to start off, let's go ahead and mark the states which I believe the Democrats and Republicans will win. Starting off with the Democrats, let's go Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Hawaii, Minnesota, Illinois, and then all these northeastern states right here. Let's go ahead and mark those. All right, and New York and Virginia. I'm not going to mark either of these two regardless, because I kind of want to break these down before I go ahead and mark them as either red or blue. Now let's go ahead and do the Republicans. So Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota. Let's not do Nebraska, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi at this point. Oh, and Alaska. So these are states I don't think are going to really switch at all around. There is no chance that they will be going towards, let's say if I've marked the state red, there's no chance I think in any scenario will it go blue, and there's no situation where I think the blue states will go red. Vice versa. You get the point. Now, with Alaska and Maine, they are broken up into districts. So there's a statewide vote in which if you win the statewide, you will get 2 of the electoral votes. And then they're broken up to 3 different districts. So the Nebraska's first, second, and third. And then for Maine, it's going to be broken up into 2. So there's Maine's first and second. With these 2 states, I am sure that Nebraska's statewide 2 electoral votes are going to go to Donald Trump, with the first and third going also to the Republicans, while the Democrats, I believe, are going to win the second. Meanwhile, for Maine, I believe it's going to go the opposite, where Kamala Harris will win Maine's 2 statewide electors, and then they're going to also win Maine's first, while the Republicans are going to win Maine's second. This leaves us at this point, Republicans at 149 electoral votes and Democrats 226. Now at this point, no, actually not yet. We still have a few more states to go over. Even though I think the next 2 states I'll go over will vote the way that I will predict them to vote regardless, I just kind of want to give a bit of clarification. To start with Florida, Florida is going to definitely go red. And it has been going more and more red ever since 2016. We saw there was a margin that Trump won Florida by, and that margin only got bigger in 2020, not to mention Ron DeSantis's landslide in 2020, and I believe 2024 will be even larger margin for Donald Trump, especially given just the general rightward shift of the state, as well as an increasing number of Hispanic and Latino Americans voting for Donald Trump. And the same goes with Texas. Texas will vote red. Many people have stated that, Texas could become a swing state in the future. I don't think that's going to be the case because much of Texas, it has I think the biggest Hispanic and Latino population, and that demographic has been shifting to the right, especially in the southern Texas, near the Rio Grande, and that's near the border. So usually they're voting quite blue, but it's actually shifting to the right. Not to mention, even though there has been certain left-leaning shifts, especially as you have a lot of people from blue states moving to Texas, such as like California, I do believe that Texas will stay red, and I think it will stay red for the foreseeable future. Although, again, there has been some left-leaning shifts in some places. There have been also right-leaning shifts in other places. And with that all being considered, I don't think Texas will vote blue at all in this election. It's going to go red. And just to make it clear, I'm not using any of the tilts, lean, or those shades of blue. I'm just going to put either solid red or solid blue. That's how I'm going to be marking it. Because at the end of the day, that's how the electoral vote works. If you get over 50%, you win the whole damn thing. Well, except for Nebraska and Maine. But even then, if you win over 50% of the vote in Nebraska, you get the 2 electoral votes. If you win over 50% of the vote in Nebraska's first, you're going to get that 1 electoral vote. So I'm just going to be marking it as red or blue. There's no shading. I won't make that distinction here. Now, with that being said, this is what I believe the map will look like before the swing states. I know for a fact that these states will vote this way. I don't think there's any chance in hell where they will go vote, where, let's say, for example, Iowa will vote blue, or where New Mexico will vote red. I think that these states, there is no chance, there's no plausible chance where they will vote one way or the other. The rest of these states, however, I believe they could potentially flip one way or the other, though depending on the state, it really depends on the state. But some states are much more of a toss-up than others. But, in any sort of potential election, I could see one state going one way or the other. So to start off, I'm going to go Nevada. I believe Trump has been making gains in Nevada. If you take a look at Nevada, you can see Trump is up 0.9%. He's been recently making gains in Nevada. And I believe also, if you look at 538, you'll see Harris is just above. It was 0.2, it said, although right here it says 0.3. And if you look at the Silver Bulletin, you can take a look and see that Harris at 0.3 points above. Now, with that being said, even though Trump has made a gain, given that there's only 2 weeks left, and given some other factors, I don't think that Trump is going to be able to make the state red. And I think Nevada tends to vote blue, usually. If you look at recent history, you can kind of just see that since 2000, you can see that, since 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016 even, in 2020, these last 4 elections, Nevada has voted blue. And I just don't think that Trump will have enough momentum in Nevada to flip the state. And I don't think Trump is super focused on Nevada anyways. I don't think he should, given that Nevada is only 6 electoral votes. And I don't think it's going to be that big of a game changer. But obviously, it's still a swing state. He has a chance to flip it, but it's important. But it's only 6 electoral votes. That being said, regardless of all that, I don't think that Trump's going to have enough popularity in Nevada to flip it red. And so for that reason, I believe Nevada is going to go blue. And I believe Nevada's 6 electoral votes will go to the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. Now, I was going to Arizona. Arizona is, in recent history, has voted red. If you look at 2016, if you look at 2012, if you look at 2008 and 2004 and 2000, it has voted red every single time since 2000, except for the last election where it voted blue. And I believe that the reason partially why Arizona voted blue was given the tensions between John McCain and Donald Trump. Given John McCain's popularity, I think that was one reason why it flipped blue in 2020. I could be wrong. Don't quote me if I am. But I believe that had influence. And now that was in the past, and I believe polling data shows it pretty well for Donald Trump. If you look at Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in Arizona, you'll see that Trump is ahead by 1.8. If you look at 538, Trump's ahead by 1.9. And if you look at the Silver Bulletin, you will see that Trump is ahead by 2 points. And given that Arizona usually votes red in recent elections, and I think that Trump will hold it, I believe that Arizona's 11 electoral votes will go to Donald J. Trump. That at this point leads us at 232 to 230, so it's quite tied there. Next is Georgia. Georgia usually votes red, although shockingly in 2020, it voted blue. And actually in 2020, I predicted 49 out of 50 states correctly. The only state I did not vote correctly was Georgia. And that's because Georgia was super close. Georgia was a 12,000 vote difference that allowed for Joe Biden to win the 2020 elections in Georgia. And a big reason why that happened was the Democrats put a lot of resources and energy into getting black voters who overwhelmingly vote Democrats to register to vote. And that allowed for a lot more people in Georgia, especially black voters who tend to vote left, to vote for the Democratic nominee in 2020, which was Joe Biden. And that allowed for Georgia to flip blue. However, if you look at the polls, Donald Trump is heading Georgia 2.5 points RCP average. 538 puts Georgia at 1.6 points ahead for Donald Trump. Silver Bulletin has Georgia at 1.5 points ahead for Donald Trump. And not to mention, there's been a right-leaning shift in black voters. Well, like relatively speaking, you see an increasing percentage of African-American voters supporting Donald Trump, particularly black men. And so with all of that being considered, I think in this election, Georgia's 16 electoral voters will cast their vote for Donald Trump. Next is North Carolina. I think North Carolina is, I don't see that much coverage for North Carolina. I just don't think that it's going to, I think North Carolina is more conservative than Georgia. It's more Republican than Georgia, especially in recent years. Even though it kind of is a swing state, it isn't a whole lot from just kind of what I read or what I see. And because it's more conservative, I think North Carolina will also vote red. I think it will also vote in favor of Donald Trump. And I think also the polling numbers kind of reflect this. So he's 0.4 ahead on RTP average. If you look at North Carolina on the 538, North Carolina is, 0.9. It's not as conservative as I would imagine it, but he's a point ahead. Yeah, so I don't imagine North Carolina going to Harris. I don't think she's going to win North Carolina. That's also just my gut feeling that Donald Trump will win North Carolina. At this point, we kind of went over all the Sun Belt states, and now we have the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, these three states are quite close. These are the closest states. These are the swing states that are the most neck and neck in the polls. And these are also the most important states. These three states, the blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, they were absolutely crucial in 2016 for Donald Trump's victory. Donald Trump's victory in these three states allowed him to win. And Biden subsequently flipping these three states in 2020 allowed him to win the election then. These three states are going to be extremely important in this election, particularly Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes makes it the swing state with the most number of electoral college voters. And this will make Pennsylvania extremely important. It is also a very much of a toss-up, relatively speaking. Well, even objectively speaking, it's a toss-up. And so Pennsylvania is extremely important in this election. And quite frankly, from what I remember, I was reading Nate Silver's blog on Pennsylvania. I believe, if I recall correctly, whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to have a very high chance of winning the election. I think it's around, if you win Pennsylvania, you have around a 90% chance of hitting 270 or above. So it's extremely important to win Pennsylvania. You'll essentially have a 90% chance of winning the election if you get Pennsylvania to vote for you. It is that important. And this state will make or break the election for either candidate. Now, to start off, I believe the most left-leaning of the three Rust Belt states are Michigan. This is because there's a lot of minority voters there, and also it just tends to vote more left than either Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, from what I remember. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, particularly Wisconsin from my memory, tends to vote more conservative within these Rust Belt states. And to start off with Michigan, I know a lot of people talk about how, the Gaza war, the Israel-Hamas war has hurted Joe Biden's reputation, approval ratings among voters, especially Arab Americans. Among Arab Americans, he kind of has a very low approval rating among Arab Americans, and that kind of trickles down to Kamala Harris, given that she's also a vice president and also a major figure within the Biden administration. However, you have to remember the Arab American vote is quite small in Michigan. Not to mention, the Arab Americans are even quite split. I think it's like 43 to 42, I believe. The Democrats still have a slight advantage over Donald Trump among Arab American voters, and also not to mention, I think 13% of them are going to be voting green. But that's besides the point. Regardless, Kamala Harris has a slight advantage over Trump even now among Arab American voters. And even considering that, Arab American voters are quite a small constituency compared to the rest of Michigan. And the rest of Michigan shows a Democratic advantage within the polls. In Michigan, you'll see that there is, Trump is plus 1.2, although you can see Harris has been leading historically in the past months, although the flip to Trump has been more recent. And if you look at 538, you'll see Michigan, Harris is up by 0.1. So it's actually quite close here. And if you look at the Silver Bulletin, you'll see Michigan is at Harris at 0.5 up. Now, I will say the recent polling, even though there is a shift towards Donald Trump in the last week or so, a lot of these recent polls that have been coming out tend to have a Republican-leaning bias. And so for that reason, those polls lead to a much bigger shift towards the Republicans than there actually is. Even among nonpartisan polls, though, I will say there is a shift towards Donald Trump. There is a improvement in Donald Trump's polling numbers. So I will say that there's still a shift towards Donald Trump, and you will see Donald Trump is getting closer and closer. But a lot of these polls recently, I think you can even see them. You see this one. This is Republican. Rasmussen is a Republican-leaning. So there's a lot of Republican-leaning polls that are coming out. But I will say there is still a turn towards Trump, especially within these swing states. That being said, Michigan is the most left-leaning of these three Rust Belt states, and these states have historically voted blue. And I don't see issues such as I don't see either the Israel-Hamas war, or Trump's improving polling numbers to lead to a flip in the states from Democrat to Republican. I think that it will stay blue this election, and for that, I believe Michigan's 15 electoral voters will go to Kamala Harris. Now we have 2 states left. That will be Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Now, these are more right-leaning than Michigan, from my understanding. Not to mention, I think Michigan has a quite popular, well-known Democratic governor. But regardless, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are also quite important, especially Pennsylvania. And let's start off with Wisconsin. Wisconsin's polling has Trump at plus 0.04, and Wisconsin is, over here, you'll see Wisconsin is more Harris leaning here. And let's see, if you look at the Silver Bulletin, if you look at Wisconsin, Harris has, I believe, a wider margin than Michigan, where she is at, 0.5 and 0.7. So, given what I also previously said, I believe Wisconsin will go blue as well in favor of Harris. Now, we are currently at 257 for the Democrats and 262 for Republicans. So this essentially leads to Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is very much a toss-up state. It could really go any way, and it's really close. It really is. And I think Pennsylvania really is going to, it's really going to be that state that will bring the candidate over to 270. I mean, if you combine Wisconsin and Nevada, that's just 16. Wisconsin, Nevada and Wisconsin is 16 electoral votes. Nevada and Arizona is 17. Even if you combine those two, it's not as much as Pennsylvania is. So if Pennsylvania goes red and Nevada and Arizona go blue, that's still better than, let's say, for Donald Trump, because that's he's still 2 points ahead. He's still 2 electoral votes ahead. So Pennsylvania is not only really important because of its extremely large number of electoral votes, 19, it will play a crucial role in essentially the strategy to win the White House. It plays a central part in any sort of victory map. That being said, it is extremely close. But given all the things I've described before, and given my gut feeling, and as well as given my overall prediction for who's going to win the White House, regardless, I mean, if you look at historical trends and that stuff, I think Pennsylvania 19 electoral votes are going to go to Kamala Harris, and that will bring Kamala Harris over 270, winning her the White House. And more specifically, this will lead to Kamala Harris winning 276 electoral votes and Donald Trump winning 262. So I think my prediction is that Kamala Harris will win the White House, and she will win with 276 electoral votes compared to Donald Trump's 262. And I think this is going to be the map. Do I think Donald Trump has a path to victory? Absolutely. I think if Donald Trump wants to win, he first needs, there's several strategies he can do. The first one is focus on keeping Georgia red. He lost that in 2020. I think he's going to do fine, but, just to make sure you don't lose it, make sure that he does a lot of voter outreach and prevents Georgia from flipping blue, or keeping blue. Rather, he wants to flip it red. And secondly, of course, focus on Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is absolutely crucial in any Donald Trump victory. And I mean, he's done a pretty good job at that. I mean, he's been doing a lot of rallies in Pennsylvania in previous months. I mean, he had Elon Musk come over and do speeches for him. So he's been doing a lot of campaigning in Pennsylvania, and that he should continue doing that, because Pennsylvania is absolutely crucial in winning this election. And it's absolutely crucial in this election in general, but especially in just winning the White House. You need Pennsylvania to go on your side. It needs to vote for your party. It needs to vote for you. You need to win that state. It is absolutely crucial. Now, one last thing. I want to discuss what a potential Harris and a potential Trump landslide would look like that I believe is feasible. I will start off with Harris. And I believe a potential Harris landslide where she wins, not only just wins 276. I'll state this before. I think that this election will most likely not, I believe that the winner of this election will most likely not gain over 290 electoral votes. I think that it's going to be a very close election, as I predicted here. It's going to be very close. Remember, you need 270 to win. She's gaining just 276. I think that this is going to be a very close election. It already is. The polling data suggests it's a very close election. I think any candidate that wins will not win over 290 electoral votes, most likely. But that's not an official prediction of mine. This is my official prediction. What you're looking at the screen is my official prediction. And regardless, which means I don't think any winner is going to gain over 290, let alone 300. It's going to be a very close election. Although, I will say, it is possible for it to go over 300. It is feasible in the case of a landslide, where, like the best possible performance for either candidate. And to start off with Harris, I think a potential Harris landslide that is actually possible, that is feasible to achieve, would look like this. Essentially, Arizona, Georgia, and even North Carolina could go blue, leading to Harris winning 319 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 219 electoral votes. I think this is possible. It's going to be very hard, but this is a possible landslide election for Harris. I think this is probably the maximum amount of electoral votes that I think that this is the maximum number of electoral votes that Kamala Harris can possibly win. On the other hand, for Donald Trump, let me set these three states red. I think a Donald Trump landslide would look like this. Trump wins Nevada and also wins the Rust Belt states, leading to Donald Trump winning 312 electoral votes to Harris's 226. And this is what I believe would be a landslide Republican victory. And this is, I think, like the maximum amount of electoral votes that could possibly be won by Donald Trump in this election. I believe that this is possible. This is possible given the current polling data and polling numbers and what we're currently seeing. Although this is not what I think is going to end up happening. It's still possible. I think what's most likely going to happen, and thus what my personal prediction is at the end of the day, is this. I think this is going to be the results. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. And that is the end of the video. I hope you guys have a great day, and see you soon.